Okay, so today we'll talk about OOP concepts, how we can create the classes, what are the classes, instances, um, and then talk about the methods and how we can leverage basically objects and in the building the page for go to the page object. Is anybody familiar with any of this terminology here? Abstraction, polymorphism, encapsulation, inheritance. This has nothing to do with any programming specific. This is general object-oriented concepts, and we'll come back to this slide. Okay, once we understand what are the classes, objects, and how we can leverage these different concepts here. Okay, so I'll hold this slide for later. So object, right? Objects are kind of like a basic building blocks. Okay, this is a way of writing the object-oriented program. Okay, in any programming language. All right. Um, it's more like a pattern. Pattern meaning kind of like we are looking at the Cucumber framework, right? It's more like a pattern or leverage the framework to write certain way, so that we can reuse the code. That's the main goal. First of all, for the why people use object-oriented programming, you can leverage the reuse basically of the code. And second thing, um, basically it represents is it allows you to basically leverage all this OOP concepts, inheritance, polymorphism, all those things, and we'll see how we can leverage some of those things for writing the automation. Okay. But what are the objects, right? What is the object? What are we calling objects here? So objects are nothing but, as you guys, those who are already familiar with it, right? It's nothing but data and methods. And so kind of like a simple example, right? So anything can be object, right? Basically any car in this example, right? I have a car. Generally, car has some properties, right? And some functions, basically, or methods. What would be the typical function for the car? Can I drive the car? Does it run, right? Can I, what is it? That's part of the running the car, right? But it could have properties, something like that. I have four wheels, right? Or maybe three wheels. Some cars are built with three wheels, I think. That we at least we used to have it in India. I'm not sure here. Um, so, or it has how many number of doors, like two door or four, right? Depending on the model of the car, you can have two door or three door. Then the engine could be one or two. I mean, I haven't seen more than one engine, but you can build with those engines. The method is something that, so properties are nothing but that describes the car. What are the different things? And methods are actually functions of the car, right? So that's where that can run and basically what's the speed and all other things. The same way, the same concepts actually you can leverage in the programming as well. So when you are designing your basically programs, um, so for our example, right? When we take it looking about the automation test. So generally, you could have basically you're gonna organize your classes and methods, right? In the on the pages. Basically, we have to organize for the page. So if I am a login, right? So I might have login object created, which might have a method called login and logout type of thing. Okay. I might have certain properties like a username, password. Those things could be part of the properties for the login object. Okay. That's just one example. Um, so those are kind of like you can call them as objects, and basically these are the properties and these are the methods or functions. Okay. Let's take a look at one more thing here. Now, there is one more concept here, right? So just like when you are building a house, right? You have somebody has to basically create a blueprint for the house, and then think through the MI homes or Dominion homes or whatever the home builders. What they do is they create a blueprint for certain models, house models, and then if you go there and they say, okay, I want to build this model, but with a little bit different changes, maybe I want to have a door here or there, some minor changes. So what they will do is they will build the exactly same house and they make few modifications, minor modifications. So those guys are mass builders, right? So the blueprint is a kind of like a definition of the model, right? And when they actually build the house, that is actually the real house. They're gonna build it from the based on the blueprint they have defined. The same concept, okay, in the object-oriented programming, you have. So in that terminology, the blueprints are nothing but the classics. Those are the definition for the object. Okay. Um, so blueprints are the definition where you define all the properties and methods, and then when you are actually writing your program, you leverage those definitions and create the objects or instances from that class, and that is the one that actually you can use basically in your program. You have to create an instance which is the actual object, and then um, basically then you can leverage call the methods and execute your program afterwards. So that's kind of like a general concept. But let me show you here how you can define the blueprint first. Okay. So this is the way you can define the blueprint. It's same as any programming, right? You have whether you are using Java or C Sharp or whatnot, you have a class and whatever the name of the class. Okay, here in this example. So you have class, learning, and end. When you are writing the methods, what were you using? We talked about the methods, right? You had a def, right? We had a def. Whatever the method name was, maybe calculate and end, right? So this is a method, okay? There is nothing to do with the class, but the class is here. This is how you can define the class or blueprint, okay? And we'll see how we can have the methods and functions defined within the class. Okay? So that's kind of like a simple definition for the class, okay? Now, let's come back here. So when you define the class, right? When you want to create the object or basically instance from the class, you can create the instance something by calling the new method. Okay. Now new is kind of like a built-in method in the Ruby programming, or if you have Java or C Sharp, I think you guys are also using the new method in there to basically call the class and dot new. This is how you can create your basically new instance from the class definition. Okay. Any question here? All right. So these are kind of like a fundamental things. Okay. Blueprint, and how do you create an object from that? That is called by calling the new method. All right. Now let's see the spatial. Basically, there is a spatial terminology for constructor here, or for purpose. I would say spatial purpose for a constructor. So here in this definition, we have class learning, and I have end. So my class definition ends here, right? I can put it in any file anywhere in my project, and I can. This is a definition, and then if I have to use the class, I basically create the instance. Then I can call learning.new, and it will give me the object, and then I can call any properties or any method. Now, as I said, right, this is empty class. There is not much in there. There are no properties. There are no methods. But I still see one thing here: def initialize and end. Now, hopefully, you guys remember the method signature, right? This is how you can define a method. This is a spatial method for the classics initialize. Okay. So this is basically by default. It's called whenever you create a learning.new. Okay, so this is a special terminology is constructor method. Okay, so it will be called automatically when you create an object from the class here. Okay, so whatever function or whatever program you put in, whatever line of code you put in, it will automatically be called. So in this example, what it will do when I call learning.new, it will create a new object, basic instance from this class, and then it will call this method, and it will print out learning is created. Okay. So this is how it works. So let me go and show you the example here in the project here. Um, so let's come back here. Let's take a look at the class here. Okay. Let me go ahead and add a new one so that you guys understand. So here I'm just creating a brand new file. Okay. Here new file, and let's call learning .rb. So this is my Ruby file, right? So I still have to name it same way. All right. So this is empty file. Now I have to define the class definition first before I do anything. So here I can do class learning. This is empty class right now. This is more of a blueprint, right? I'm not running any program here. So if I run this file, it will do nothing because I haven't created object or anything, right? This is just a definition. All right, so here let me put the same initialize method, right? Initialize, def initialize, okay? And I can say puts hello Ruby, right? So I can add a new method in there called initialize, and that becomes my constructor method. Okay, as long as you initialize, give it a name initialize, it becomes a constructor method. It will automatically be called. Now, how do I create a object from here? I have to do learning.new, right? This is how I can do it. Parentheses are optional, right? But I am used to putting it, so I'll just go ahead and put it in. And at this point, at this line of code here, it will actually create a class from this blueprint or template and basically execute the program. Okay. Let's go ahead and run it. If I run this program, now I will see hello Ruby at the end. Okay. If I don't have this line, okay, and if I run it, nothing will happen. All right, because I'm not creating object. You have to have object created. Okay, in order to use any methods or any program that you have defined here. I just want to make sure you guys understand at least how do you create it and those things.
We have to put the argument for definition for the methods.
Yeah.
How do we call it?
You can put the arguments here, just like that, x and y, something like that, right? So these are two arguments. So what it does, let's say I have this one, right? And if I run it, it will throw me an error, right? It's a compiler will say, oh, now you define the arguments here. You have to make sure you have the argument specified. So I have to say a, let's say a, I'm passing the values now, right, to the argument. So a and b, and I can print out actually a puts x, right, because it's coming in x, and put y. So now it will print a and b, right? But if I don't have this line again, nothing will happen. Okay, the class does not do alone anything. All right, and any question on this class, right? Okay, so let's go and take a look at it. One more thing. So this is initialize is kind of like a default constructor method, right, within the class. But we can define our own methods as well. Okay, so I can add as many methods I need. What are functions, right? So we are talking about car, right? So let's change this guy to car here, okay, so that you guys understand. So this is a car object we are defining, car class defining, okay, and I don't have to put anything in the initialize, or this is optional method, okay. So even if I don't put it, it will still create its own method and it will still be called, okay, by automatically. But let's put the custom functions here. So what is a car? What is a, so I can drive, right? What are the functions car can have? Drive, right? Okay. And here let me put I'm running, right? Or driving, whatever it is. What is another method car can have? What is another method car can have? Let's say shut off, right? Or turn off. And then I can have another method called start, right? So those three things, I can have it as a method, right? And I can say puts for now starting or started, and puts turned off, right? So now I just defined the car blueprint, okay? The car basically class. Now when I want to use in the code, these methods and all those pieces, I have to create a new instance, right? So again, I'll come back here and I'll say car dot new, okay? And this is how I can create it. Now, when you create a new instance, right? How do I call the method? Because this line just creates a new object. But if I want to call the method afterwards, what do I do?
Use
So typically, you create a variable and get hold of the instance in the variable. So let's say I create a C is equal car dot new. Okay. So what I'm doing is I just created a brand new variable, and when I do car dot new, the object instance that comes and I can store that variable. This variable will get hold of that new instance. Now I can call any method that I need. Now I can say C dot start, C dot turn off or drive, right? I can provide the instruction. This is how I can provide the instruction, and C dot turn off, right? All three methods I can call one by one from there. So if I run this class, this Ruby file again, now I'll see started, driving, and turned off. Okay. So I started, driving, turned off, any method that I want to do. Now if you have more code here, right? You can certainly put more lines of code here on any of the methods, depending on what you want to do and all those things. And we'll see how we can leverage this kind of like a mechanism for our building out automation test. Okay. So this is kind of like a building block for our automation test. Any question? How do you create or how do you define a class, right? And hopefully you guys remember the definition, right? This is important. The methods that we talked about, our functions, how we can create it in the last session at the end. I don't know whether you guys created any definition in the homework exercise, but you can do the same, whatever is available in there. You can do the same thing. You can pass arguments here, X, Y, Z, and all those things. Okay. All right. So let's go back here. Okay. So we talked about classes, right? Are the more like a blueprints. Classes are more of a blueprint, right? And they describe the objects. And also classes have properties or fields or variables and methods, right? Those are the two things. And there are two steps in creating an object. First, you define the blueprint, and then second thing, you create an instance of it. Okay, so that's where we are. So here we just saw how do we create an instance of the class. Okay, and we also talked about the constructor method, right? We talked about the initialize, how we, and it is automatically called when you do learning.new or class.new, whatever the class that you have, right? It will automatically be called. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at one more variation here. Okay. So now we know there is a constructor method, and we can pass some parameters to the constructor method, right? Because it's a kind of like any method that you have. But let's say here we are passing two parameters. Now I'm seeing the two lines of code here. What are these, right? So you can pass in the parameter, but this you can store the values, whatever the parameter values, into the instance variable. Okay. We talked about, I think in the last class, there are different types of variables available. You have local variables. These are kind of like an instance variable. Then you have class variable, and then you have global variable. Four different, right? So the main difference between this, like a instance variable versus local variable, Instance variables are, you can use it only within the class. Okay, you cannot use it basically outside the class. It's available within the instance whenever the instance is running. Okay, so that's the main thing. Now, what was the global variable? Did anybody remember? You can use it anywhere in your project, right? You define what, and what was the symbol for global variable? So you can define with the dollar symbol, right? And local variables, did it have any symbol? Right? So they don't have leaf symbol. So it doesn't have at in the front. I could have age equals whatever. So that becomes my local variable. Okay. Uh, so the instance variable, right? So they are kind of like a class attributes or properties, right? You can call it a properties. So if I go back to my here example here, let's see. Oh, I have another example here. So we'll work with it. They are more like a class properties and become the properties of the objects once we create the basically objects using the class definition. Okay. Main thing is defined with the at operator. That's how you can tell it's an instance variable or global variable or whatever. That's the difference. And for this class, right, these are called instance variables at name and at age. So now, just like anything, right, you have let's take a look at example here, and I'll let you guys read through here. So, so we have a class length, right? I have defined a class, and everything is in between is a within the class definition here. Okay. So you have what is this? Initialize method, constructor method, right? And I'm passing two parameters L and W here, and then I'm storing those L and W values into this instance variable. Okay. At length and at width. Then I have one more method here, which is called instance method, or just like a method. You can call it just methods as well. Which is def get area end, right? And I have at length at width multiplied by width, right? So this is a very simple class, okay? Length and what's the purpose? Calculate the area, right? Of whatever parameters. So if I send in 5 and 10, I should get 50 back, right? Something like that. So that's the whole purpose of this class. Let's take a look at it. What we are doing here. So once I define it, right? Then I have to create. If I want to use any of the methods here or the logic, what I build, I have to create the object first, right? Or instance. So here I'm creating an object called lend info, right? By calling the class dot new, right? And whatever the values, I'm passing in 10 and 20 here. So the values 10 and 20 comes here because as soon as I do new, it will call initialize method, right? And it will pass 10 and 20, and it will store into the instance variable, right? So that's all it does, this line, okay? The second line, lend area, the actual area, I'm calling this method here. Now I have this object, right? Lend underscore info. I can call the methods like this, like dot get area. Okay. So what it will do is at length at width, right? So it will return me some value, whatever the calculation result is, and it will store into this variable here. Okay. Okay. And then that's all I'm doing. I guess I'm not printing, right? So what would be the result here? That will be nothing, right? Because only if you print out this variable, that's where you will see the actual result of that value. Because I don't have any puts anywhere, right? I'm not printing anything here. So let me go and quickly do that here so that you guys, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another class, okay? So I'll say just class file, and let's say call information.rb class information. Okay, so my class is there, and I'm going to do def initialize L and W. So now I'm defining my initialize method, and here I'm saying length is equal L, and at width is equal w, right? So this is my initialize method. Then I have another method called def get area, right? And here I am putting actual logic at length multiply by at width. Okay. Now I can easily put in, if I do puts, right? What it will do? It will print it, right, at the same time. But I'm just getting that. Right now I'm not putting any puts or anything. All right. Okay, so first rule is you have to have basically class created first, I mean object created first. So let's do here I equals um, information dot new, and in the tool they'll give you hint, okay, any argument. So these are the arguments, right? So it will say star arguments, n number of arguments. Okay, so here I can pass in the actual 20 and 50. Okay, so now my class is initialized, and now I can call the method. Let's say area equals I dot get area. Okay, so now I'm calling the actual method, right? And now I can do puts area. So now I'm printing it at the end. All right. So if I run this, I will get 1000, right? If I change the value here, I'll get 1500. So what we are doing here, right? So this is making it's a code reusable, right? Little bit more reusability. Remember how if you don't have this, right? You can still do it. Basically all those things without the classes. That's how you were doing it earlier, right? You didn't have class, so you're just defining certain things. You are putting everything in line. These are called inline programming, right? One line after another. But here you are organizing your code into class structure and putting the methods around it, and then you are just calling in 3 lines of code. Okay. Any question on this one? What?
So the accessible is the instance variable.
These are instance variables. Yes, they are available within the object whenever the object is running. Okay.
If we are not using that as symbol, we can't do that in that other definition, right? It considered as a local variable, right?
Yeah. So if I remove it right here, it says a different meaning because these are local variable, right?
Okay.
So if I by mistake I don't put this and I leave it here, right? So what should I get if I do that? Any guess? It will be blank, right? But I guess it will throw an error because these variables are not initialized. That's the reason. Okay. Um, so I can say length is equal 0, whatever, and width is equal 0 here, initialized or something, right? They are not initialized, so it program will not basically work. Um, but you have this, so if you don't use it like that, those are using local variables, which are available only within this methods code. Now the good thing about the instance variable, right? They are available within the class, any methods that you have. So if I have another method, right, dap print area, right, something like that, I can use the same variable. I don't have to create again, basically. And with the same value, it will hold. So if I change it here at length 50, and then say at length multiply by at width. Okay, so I don't have to have the different ones basically. Okay, and then I can call this different method as well. Put set, right? So what in this case, right? What we are doing is, um, so here we are sending in 30 and 50, right? So it will come here. It will have 30 and 50 initially, right? Then we call get area. We are not changing the values here, right? We are still have 30 and 50 values here. So this one will print out correctly the result. But in this method, I'm overriding length equals to, let's say, 100, right? So here I'm overriding the value length, changing the variable to 100 value. So it will have new area. So it will you will see different result because initially we had 30, right? So it will have 5,000 printed if I on this line. Okay, so this one will print 1,500, but this one will have 5,000. So if we run this, 5,000 and let's see, I don't get it here. Let's go back here. Length here. Oh, yeah, that's correct. So it just printed, I mean, reverse order. That's all it is. I guess that's how it prints. This one first and second. Whatever the latest is at the top. Okay. So you can override those values as many times as you need within the class, basically. All right, but sometimes when you talk about this class variable, right, you might want to access them directly, basically, from your like in the some other programming languages. Like you define the variables and they are accessible from with as a properties and those things, right? In the Ruby, there is a little bit difference here. So in order to access the values, basically for these variables, for whatever variables that you have instance variables, you have to basically have the getter and setter methods specified, and then you can basically call this values. So these are, let's see if you guys can see. Okay. So getter and setter or accessor and setter method, right? Let's take a look at this class here. Okay. But the whole purpose of this method, right? This particular getter and setter methods, you can access make these variables accessible or the values accessible from outside the class directly. Okay. And this is the way I can define. Okay. So I have this class information. I have these two, right? Initialize, and here print name, and I am returning only at name. So whatever value is here, it will return basically back. Here I'm print age, so it's just returning the age. By the way, if you write the last line, right? This is the line. There is no return specified here, right? But it will automatically return the value, whatever is the last statement from there. Okay. So whatever the value is there, it will return. So that's kind of like a reading the values of this basically instance variable. Now, if you want to write it, right? Let's come back here and then we'll look at the previous example. How do I set the values, right? So there are two ways. Which way we saw it earlier? You can send as a definition, right? In the method, you send the values and then you set it in your code. Or you can specifically have the setter methods for every variable that you will have. And this is the way you can write it. Def set underscore name is equal whatever new value that you want to put. And here at name is equal value. Okay, so you can specify this syntax as well. Now I'm not a big fan of this syntax, so I typically prefer whatever I want to do in the put it in the definition and be done with it. Okay, whatever the method basically. So I typically prefer this route, something like this. Pass the argument and set the value that you want to do. Set it up. Okay. So it's up to you how you want to set the values, pass back and forth, all those values. I would say stick to this one unless you really have to go different route. Then go different route. Okay.
Then finally, outside after creating the object, you have to just give puts at age. That will work.
No, it will not work. You have to call this. This is again a method, right?
Yeah, method.
So you have all this method is doing is it's just reading the value and printing it out. Basically, that's all it's doing. Okay. But in the Java, C# or other programming languages, you can actually reference dot the variable, public variables, and do that. But in the Ruby, it doesn't work that way. Okay. I'm just pointing out the difference here. So you have to call like this, accessor method. All right, let's take a look at this example. So we are printing the name here. We are printing the age, right? This is my definition. Then I have my info is equal information.new Tom 20, right? Here. So what this will do, we are just creating a new instance, right? And passing this to Tom and 20 value, right? It comes here and set this to instance variables. Okay. Then I'm basically calling this print name method, basically, which is accessor method, and storing it with the value here, my underscore name. Same way, I'm calling this print underscore age, storing it into my underscore age, and then I'm just printing them out, right? So this is kind of like a simple logic, right? Call those methods, store it into variable, and then I'm printing it out on the screen. And when you execute the code, it will have Tom and 20 printed based on these two lines. Now, how different it is than what we discussed, it's up to you, okay? How you want to program this thing, or how you want to define whichever way is comfortable. For me, it makes sense. I just make it simple like this and just go with that, okay? Again, we already talked about the setter method, right? How you can set the value. So this is about getting the values. You can send in the values, set the values of those instance variables, something like that. So I have my info set name is equal my info set age is equal 40. Then I'm printing those two values. So it will print Mike and 40 based on this class definition. Okay. As I said, I'm not a big fan of this one. So we'll stick to the simple way, okay, of writing. But this is available just to keep in mind, okay. Don't get too bogged down on the syntax here and what's happening here. We'll keep it simple. Okay, so let's take a look at one more thing. Here. Now, since you guys are not programmer, you may not use this concept, okay? This is the one, but there's another type of variable we talked about, right? With two at symbols here. These are the class methods and variables, right? So what is a class variable? So we talked about the instance variable with at symbol, right? That is available with you for all the objects. So what happens is like when you create this, right? Let me show you an example here. Let's do one before we jump on to the next topic. So I'll go back here to the learning. Okay. And let's do simplify it. Okay, so let's take a look at here. So I just change. I have this class here, right, which is a car, basically, and I have this initialize method. It takes one parameter called name, and this is a constructor method, right? As we all know. So this one will be called whenever I do new, right? Then I have the definition turn off and start, right? So I have those two methods only. So these are the kind of like operation of the car that I'm defining here. Okay, and whenever it started, I print this car started, this car started. So what I can do is, now remember, this is a blueprint, right? So when you are building multiple objects, right? So let's say I do car1. This is my new instance is equal car dot new. Okay, and it takes a name, right? So I will say Toyota. Okay, so I'm creating a Toyota car here. Okay, That's my car1. Car2 is equal car.new. Let's say Honda, right? So what happens is this objects that you can create multiple objects, okay, from one blueprint. Remember, when you are building the house, right? They can take the same blueprint, build the multiple houses, same way, right? Um, so you are creating multiple. Now all these instance variables, right? They are not shared among these classes. So when I do car.new Toyota, they get all this name variable is part of this car one, and it contains a value of Toyota. Okay. Then car two will have this name variable has a value of Honda. Okay. So if I have a third car, so what I mean is that they get a copy of their own instance variable. That's why they are called instance variable. They are whatever values you have, it's not shared among this basically new objects, right? They are different. For instance, so if I do car1 dot start, right? I call this method and car2 dot start, right? So what should I see? Toyota I started and then Honda I started, right? Those two different things. So if I run it,
R2.
so I will see Toyota started, Honda started. Okay, so they are not shared among these two variables. But let's say if I do something else. Okay, so now I had to define another variable called let's say what else we have, color, right? Okay, color, and I will define something like that, black. Okay, black color, right? And if I do that here, um, and let's say we are putting that here, copy. So what this? So now I just defined a class variable. Okay. So what it does is this class variable, both car will share it. Okay. So if I change the value of this color to pink here, let's say in the Toyota, and then I can change the value to the different basically. And so this variable is accessible from both classes. It's the same variable. Okay, so that's the main difference. Uh, but the instance variables are not shared. Everybody has their own copy. Okay, so that's the biggest difference here. Um, so let's say if we write another method here.
So instead of defining the exact value, they can we get the value in runtime?
Yeah, so you can say at name plus whatever 1.2 or yeah, you can get it at runtime basically as well. You mean the set the value at the runtime? So you have to define the method and change the value. You can just do like that basically. So let me go back here this slide, right? How you can leverage that basically um, instance variable, right? Very oh yeah. Okay. So as we know, all the instances will have access to the same added value, right? Here added type, everybody gets a value and then they can change it. Then it will be changed to all the instances available. So if I change it in one class, another instance, another class will have that same value. Basically. Okay. Um, so that's, but as I said, I mean, you guys probably will not use it, this concept more, because this is when you talk about the programming and building the software and do the threading. That's where this one is more used, not for the automation testing. But they might still ask you the some concept. What is a class variable? What is the instance variable? Just to harass you in the interview, even though they know you're not going to use it anywhere practically. But this is concept that's available. Okay, so just hopefully you guys understand the concept, right? And you have to explain the same way, similar way, or whatever with the example. Uh, okay, so let's go back here and take a look at a few more things, and then we'll actually dive into the coding side of things. and see how you can leverage this OOP concept. Um, so just like those methods here, like a def, right? So these are called instance methods, right? These are, by definition, they are instance methods within available within that. But you could have a class method as well. Okay, so you can define something like this: def self dot method. So if I come here and I'll change the method name here, get area def self dot get area. So this becomes instance class method at this point. And what's the biggest difference here? You don't have to initialize, have to have a class object created before you call the method. Okay, so I don't have to have len.new. I can just simply call len dot get area, and it will. I can call this class method directly. That is again a very rare scenario. You guys will use it, okay? But that is again available as part of the object-oriented programming concept. So it will bypass the dot new because it's a class method. So you can call it from anywhere in the program.
So that initialize means that is like,
This is again a constructor, instance constructor method.
so that is for that, it's a default constructor.
It's a default constructor method. Yeah. So if you don't have it, it will still call some initialize method, just like any constructor method in any programming language.
So that is a kind of keyword or a,
Initialize a keyword. If you misspell it, right, and you are expecting something to be called, it will not call. If you capitalize I, again, it's a case sensitive language, right? So it will throw you error, and you are expecting. I've seen a lot of spelling mistakes you guys make it when you are first writing the program, and you will encounter that. I'm sure somebody will do. So as I said, right, class method can be referenced without the instance of a class. You don't have to create the instance, right? You can just say technology.default concept, and it will work. You don't have to have like a new dot new and then call the instance, create the instance, and then call other way. So this is a little bit different topic, but if you guys want to read upon it, read upon it. But I don't think you guys will use it, okay, in your our automation testing concept. So let's revise few things, okay, before we go to the actual start building. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So we talked about the variables, right? So we talked about local variables, right? Local variables that are defined in a method or your program, right? Without any symbol. Okay. Those are become local variables. And local variables not available outside the method. Okay. Remember that. So you can't call this variable outside this method. Okay. They have to be specified within the methods that you are calling. By the way, it needs to begin with the lowercase. Okay, so you can't begin the local variables with the uppercase. All right, because that's kind of like a Ruby practice. And if you define with the uppercase, then Ruby will get confused. Hey, are you trying to define the constant or what? Okay, so that's what the Ruby specific thing. All right, so we talked about local variables, right? Last time as well. I think you guys all worked through that. And here I'm defining local variable 1 equals whatever here, right? These are the syntax you can use. Then we talk today about instance variables. So these are available across methods for any particular instance or object, right? So here I have 3 instance variable in the initialize, which I can use it here, right? And how do I know they are instance variable? Because they have at symbol. Okay, I can use it any method in the class. Okay, those instance variables. And when I pass these values, right? In this example, I have these 2 methods here, customer 1 and customer 2. They have their own copy of the instance variable here, and it will be printed something like this. Okay. these two things. So this method, whenever you call this method, it will print out. So it will print these two. Any question on the instance variable? Okay. All right, so there is another kind, right? Global variable. You guys will use this a lot, okay? Global variable. As I said, I mean, the username, password, you want to store it somewhere and use it, reference it, you can do it using the global variable. But the difference is, it's a global variable is basically across all the classes or throughout your program, okay? Wherever, whatever, within the project, okay? And begins with a dollar symbol, right? Again, all the variables are initialized, or when you say by default they will have value of nil or nothing. Now here it says it is not recommended to use global variables, so you don't want to use it everywhere. Okay, use only when you need it. Okay, that's the whole point. So take a look at this example. I'll let you guys read through. Right here, spend maybe about 30 seconds reading through it here. See what it does. So you guys read through it? Okay. So I'm defining the global variable, right, in my program. At the top, I have this dollar global variable 10. So what it says is global variable is accessible anywhere, right, in your program. So this class, I have this definition of class 1, and it has a one method called print global, and I'm using this global variable to print out something. Okay. Then class 2, I have definition print global. This is class 2 or whatever, right? Then, so these two class definitions. Then I'm writing my class 1 dot new. So that's a first instance. And then I'm printing the global variable. Okay. So what a value. So this one should have value of 10, right? Then I have class 2 dot new, right? And I'm printing the variable again. Again, it will have class 10. Now, if I change it anywhere, right? The value, let's say I can change here $10 global variable is equal to 20 before this line. Okay, then I would have different value. Okay, anywhere after this line, anywhere after this line. Got it? Because I'm changing the value. Then it will print the value for this one as 20. What a new value you put in? What I'm saying is, if I change the value here, right? This is a line here that sets the initial value of 10. But if I have another line, dollar global variable equals 20, right? Then it will change the value. Then this one will print value of 20, right? That's all I'm saying.
But it wouldn't change the value of class 1.
Well, if you print it here again, then it will have different value. If you call the method again, class 1 dot object new after this line, let's just build it, okay? See what it does, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a new class. And test.rb, okay? And I'll say dollar global variable equal 10. Then I have class 1, and then def print global. Okay, and I'm not going to write other thing. I'll just say print dollar global variable. Okay, so I'm just going to print the value. That's all. Then I'll have class 2. So I'm defining a second class, and I'm printing the value of global variable. Okay. Right. So this is a syntax error, right? Otherwise, I would get syntax. Now, first of all, what I need to do is I need to create an object, right? So C1 is equal class1 dot new, right? And then I can call C1 dot print name or print global. Okay, so this one should print 10. If I run this program right now, should have value of 10, right? Okay. Then I'll do second object, right? C2 is equal class2 dot new. Okay. Then C2 dot print global. So now I'm printing the second class method. Okay. So here, if I do that, again I will have value of 10, right? So now 10, 10 printed twice. So let's change the value here. You can change it here or here. Let's say we change the value here. Here I'm going to say global variable is equal 1000. Okay. So C2 should have value of 1000. Okay. Because we are changing the value before we are printing it. Okay. Same thing. If I do C1 values again, call that again, it should print 1000 again. Right. So now I have again the value is changed to 1000. It's because it's a global variable, accessible from any class. Okay. Is everybody clear? Right? And the last one, right? So we talked about the class variables, which are accessible across all different objects, right? And basically the sign with the two at symbols over there, followed by the variable name and all those things. Okay. There are just some guidelines for the naming convention, right? Now, typically, when you go in the companies, they typically have their own naming conventions. So you have to follow the coding standards or coding guidelines, whatever they have. All right. But these are some of the ones that I just basically put it here. It has to be lowercase, right? There is no brainer. You have to have it lowercase, followed by some meaningful names. So whatever the variable, don't just put ABC just like I'm doing here, which is a bad practice. Okay, but I'm just being lazy here, so I'm putting XYZ. But you're supposed to put whatever the variable should contain, what value, right? What type of value and those things. Yeah. So just read through it when you get a chance. The last variable is actually constant, right? We talked about that is a one additional thing. It's all uppercase. And what's the difference between constant and variable? Cannot be changed, right? The values cannot be changed. So once you define the constant, and if I try to change it, assign different value, it will throw me an error. Okay, in the program. So that's the main difference. All right, so classes and basically modules. Modules we'll talk maybe later today or tomorrow. Okay, module concept. So, but we talked the class. It has to be uppercase. The name, class name has to be uppercase. Okay, that's all it. Any questions so far? What we discussed? I'll let you guys work through a few exercises afterwards. Okay, let me finish up the few things. I think we are almost there with two more slides, and then we will actually build something. Okay, so method, right? Um, this is more like a revision. We already talked last time, last session, but let's just take a look at quickly. So method names, right? So all the functions we define with the car object, right? Turn on, turn off. Those are methods, class methods we define. You can also have the parameters, right? Parameter 1, parameter 2, whatever number of parameters. Okay. In all the methods, you have def, and then whatever the name of the method. So something like that, whatever output value, this is the parameter, and then you can do whatever you need in the method. We also talked about the return values. Okay. So method will always return some type of value. Okay, in the Ruby program. Even if you don't say return x multiplied by y, it will return that value regardless. Whatever the last statement is in the Ruby, that's the value is being returned. So here the last statement or first statement is the same, x, y. So it will return whatever the multiplication in this manner. And now if you explicitly say return something, then it will obviously return it. But if you don't specify the return, then whatever the last statement is, that's what it will return. We also talked about this method, right? This is a variable. We are defining some default values. Remember, we defined the default values. So if you don't supply the variable, then it will use the default value. Okay? So this one has a default value. This one does not. Okay? So it will take basically work through the. I mean, if you don't have it, then here, right, in this example, print this one plus that, right? Some numbers 2 plus 3 equals 5. Here you are supplying only one parameter basically to this method. So it will automatically take 5 plus 10, whatever, and it will print 15 over there. Yeah. Just keep this word slide handy as well, because when you're writing the program, most commonly used one is this type of format. Okay, you will use something like a return, whatever the value is, but you will use this one. I practically don't like this one because I get confused sometimes with the default value, what's default and what's not. So I don't use this format. I always use this type of format without default values. Any question on the method? All right. Okay, so now let's see how we can apply this one. So generally, when we talk about the writing the automation test, right? So typically, you are building in the web application, right? You are so many number of pages basically. So for every page, you will have typically one class created. Okay, that's the standard way of doing it. So if you are, let's say you are on Airflow on home page, so you will have a home page class, and you will have what are actions or activities you are doing, or based on the acceptance test. So every step, you will have a corresponding method in the class. Okay, so that's how you have to build it. So we'll build slowly on that and see how it will change. Okay, over time. But let me go through this example first. Okay, then I'll let you guys work through this exercise on your own here, and we'll build a few other things. But let me make sure you guys understand what we are trying to do here. So I'm going to create a brand new project, Bing Search. We'll use a Bing Search exercise. Okay, I'll create a new feature file. This is, I think you guys know it, right? This one, how to create the feature file, create the folder structure properly, features and all those things. That's the core of what we are doing. Okay, but this is a new. Then we'll add a new support folder under features. Okay, and then we'll add this 4 methods, because I will have 4 steps, and I'll go through that. Okay, we'll add few methods in there, and then finally we'll hook up the methods from the step definition.
So
Okay.
in the support folder, we create a class by Bing Search.
Bing Search, yes, that's correct. Bing Search.rb. Okay, and then you will have the 4 methods as part of that. Okay, all these 4 methods will go under that class, and then we'll hook up this method using the Bing Search. Okay, so I'll show you here. Okay, that just pay attention here. Okay, don't touch anything. I also have a recorded video for the same exercise I'm going to show you. So if you are struggling, plug in your headphone and you can follow through when you are working through it. Okay. So as I said, I'm going to create a brand new project. So let me just go to the brand new project. But before that, I'm just going to copy the certain things. Okay. So new project. Okay. And let's say what is the date today? June 2019, 06, 22, 2019. Okay. And new window. So I want to make sure I have empty project created. So this is a brand new empty project. I don't have anything, right? And it's empty file folder. So first thing, what I need to do, add the features folder, right? So add new directory, features. Okay. So I expand this and I have features folder. Now let's go ahead and do the support folder. Okay. So new folder directory called support. Okay. So now feature folder contains support folder. Okay. So that's just a structure.
No environment.
You can put everything under support as well. Okay. env.rb, hooks.rb, and all those things
In support.
in support itself. Okay. So let's go and add our first feature file called whatever you want to name it, Bing search dot feature. Okay, because this is the functionality I'm testing. So it's an empty file, and make sure the cucumber symbol shows up, then you are good. All right. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy paste this scenario here. Right. So let's take a look at the scenario. Search for Ruby Cucumber training. That's what I'm looking for, right? I'm on a big homepage. When I enter Ruby Cucumber training, I search. Then I shall see IntelliX software in the search result. Okay. All right. So that's my first step, which I'm good. Let me go and create the step definition. That is your second step, right? You guys remember, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. And how do you create it? So click here, right? Bulb,
Definition.
create step definition. Now there is another thing here, right? Sometime it works, sometime it doesn't. Okay. So if you do this, let me go and give it a try. Underscore my underscore steps. Okay. I'll just leave it default. Let's see if it does anything. So it created only one. Okay. So it didn't do anything good for me. All right. But anyway, so let me go and quickly hook up all four. Two, go back. Three and four. All right. Now, what is our goal here? So, do you think I'm done here?
We need to write
We wrote the step definition here.
Oh yeah.
But what is another thing you have to do? The capture groups. Okay, remember the word capture groups, because whatever I'm sending in acceptance test, it needs to basically my test data needs to flow through the step definition here. Okay, so that's something you have to do, and for that, what are we gonna do here? So here, for example, I have this data which I want to flow through to my step definition, and ultimately it will go to the class. Okay, so I need to flow through this data, and second thing, my search result, right? This part needs to go there. So how do I convert this? So I come here to the step definition and I close this parenthesis, right? Okay, and what I can do is remember the regular expressions that you guys did. For now, I'm just gonna put dot star because whatever I type in, it should go through, right? I don't have anything else afterwards. Here, so I can again, I follow the same steps here. Okay, and whatever keyword I specify needs to go in there. So dot star, anything between these two, I should send it. So if I change it to ABC company, then I should show ABC company. That's what it says in the search result. Okay, what is the second step? So that's the first thing. If I do that, right, what am I missing here? You guys forgot? So if I run this, right, let me run it, right? See if you guys are able to interpret the error. So you guys need to read the error now, okay? Oh, this is pending. Okay, so this is pending. So let me get rid of the pending. Okay. So that we don't want to get an error, right? But let's see we get the right error this time. So this is the right error. Okay. So what's wrong with this one? What am I missing? Once I convert it here, what am I missing here? So we are missing argument, right? Because you define it, but where does it go? So you're gonna get these errors, okay? Every time you convert. It says your block takes 0 arguments, but regex match 1 argument. So every regex you specify, okay, you need to have matching argument. So how do I specify the arguments in the steps? I can say argument here or whatever you now name it, okay? ABC is fine here. But as I said, put some meaningful. Let's put some meaningful. Search result or whatever. And here, search criteria, right? So I can put some meaningful name, what I'm searching. So at this point, my test should run fine. 4 scenario, 1 pass, 4 pass, right? 1 scenario. Okay. So now our goal is to go to the objects level, right? So we just define the classes. We understand what the classes are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the support folder, select it and right click, new file. And here I will say Bing search dot rb. Okay. So this is my class file. Okay. Now, as I said, right, you have to have a blueprint. This class will contain only blueprint. Okay. This file should contain only blueprint. Okay. So I will have a class called Bing search. And I need to have all my corresponding methods created here. Okay. And make sure you run it every time. Okay. As soon as you add something, just try to run it. Make sure it runs without any error. Okay. Because if you do most common mistakes you will have is you will go something like this, right? You're gonna start seeing some red lines everywhere. Okay. And it will not run. Okay. So it will say okay, it's error here. Or you define something like this. Okay. And I think it will throw you an error as well again. All right. Because it does not recognize uppercase class. Okay. So this is a class NN. All right. So what is our method here? So let's come back here. So visit Bing, right? First of all, let's see what we are doing in the method in the step. So what we are doing is given I am on Bing page, right? So now we are defining how do I go to the Bing page. Okay, that's what our class method will do for us. Okay? So here I'll define this. Let me come back and see visit Bing. I just want to put it exactly. Okay. So we'll say visit Bing def visit Bing. That's my one method, right? What is my second one? Let's see. Enter search criteria, right? Okay. Then I have def enter search criteria. Okay. Then I will have third one. Search. Yep. Okay. And last one is verify search result, right? So if I go back, I have 4 steps. Now I created 4 methods, okay, which I can call, create the instance and call the methods, okay. So that class can do actually interaction or whatever it needs to do from there. Now one thing. So you actually, if you really look at it, I want to actually flow, open the browser, go there, and actually type it in, right? So I need to supply whatever came from the acceptance test. We are putting it as an argument, right? In the step definition, that needs to go to the class. Okay. So what we are saying is, I'll go back to the class here. Okay. This method, I need to take some argument in there. Okay. So here, this method needs to actually take in. Remember where you are calling from. You are calling from this step here. Okay. And it has argument coming in, search criteria, and that's the same one I need to flow that to the class. Okay. So I need to specify something like that. Criteria, OG, it doesn't have to be same name. Okay, but if you specify same name, which is okay. Okay. So now I specify one argument and see if I can what I can do. Same way, verify, right? I need to verify IntelliX software. So that argument or result, I can just put result. Doesn't have to be same name as other criteria. Okay. All right. So at this point, let's just put some methods around it. Bing page, home page. Okay. And we'll put here, and here I will put the actual criteria so that we know, okay, whether we are getting there or not. Puts search. By the way, anything that you hard code, right? This is hard coding. You have to surround with the quotes. Search criteria is a variable. You don't surround with the quotes. Okay. This is a variable. This is argument. You don't surround with the quotes. This one, I'm actually typing it in. Right? These are not argument. Whatever typing. Just because I know you guys will get into those errors. Okay. Puts result. Okay. So at this point, my class is ready, definition is ready. I'm ready to create the object and work through it. Instance. Okay. So this is a blueprint. All right. So I'll go back to the step definition here. And the way you can create objects. Okay. Here is to how do we create the object, right? How did I show you? Okay. If I have to create any object, for instance, from the class, how do I do? What method do I call?
Initialize.
No, do I call initialize or do I call something else?
You have to create an instance variable.
How do I create an instance variable?
Dot new.
Dot new, right? That is the way you can call it. Okay. So here, so our class is called what? Bing search. So whatever the name of the class is, okay, this is the class name. It doesn't, file name doesn't have to be same, okay? This is the class name. This is the file name, right? It doesn't have to be same, but here I gave the same name. But this is the important part. This is what I am is calling. This is the class name. This is what I need to say dot new. Okay. If your file name can be anything, okay, there is no relationship between those two. All right. So I come back here, my steps, and I can say here, Bing object. Let me just say Bing object. I'm just gonna create some variable is equal Bing search dot new. Okay. So I can say simply like that. And at this point, this object is available in my program here. So I can say Bing object dot whatever method you are calling. So when you go on the home page, right? I want to call visit Bing. Okay. So you can just select that and do that. Bing object dot enter search criteria, right? This object method, and I'll say pass in the parameter search criteria. So whatever argument came in, I'm going to send to this method. So the class will take it and do something with it. Okay. Bing object dot let's see here search, and then last one dot verify. Okay, and let's say search result. Okay, is everybody clear? All right. I know you guys will go through this. Okay, you guys will build it here. I want to make sure you guys understand first. All right, so let me go and run it. See if it works. It may or may not work, right? So now I have Bing homepage, right? So that's the one. Now nothing, I'm not printing here. So now I actually created a class instance, right? And call the methods here. And that's what is coming from this message. So I'm able to pass all the way in the class. The only thing I need to do is now next week we'll hook up the web drivers, which are Selenium or water. Okay. So if you switch it, only thing you need to switch is the what libraries you are using for the driver. All right. So that's the only part. Okay. That's the only thing. That's the only line. This is the main one. This is where your coding comes. For the classes, defining the classes, defining what methods you're gonna write, how do you pass the parameters, and all those things. Browser interaction is very straightforward.
That is where you give the browser URL and everything.
Yes, so we'll get to that part. Okay, we'll get to that part. That's where we have to use the actual library, the water and Selenium. We'll go one by one on that. All right, so everybody clear what we did? So what I want you guys to do is let's build the same example. Okay. I think you guys know how to write this one, so I'll leave this open. Create the steps, right? Second thing would be steps, and third thing would be creating the class. Okay, and that would be the last step, not last step, second last step for us. So let's work through. Open your computers and we'll build the same exercise. Okay. If you have headphone and you want to follow through on the video as well, you can certainly do so. But I think most of you should be able to follow through what we just done.
Have you sent us the video?
I think it's online already. If you go to the Intelix site, if it's not public, I'll make it public. Let me just make sure it's there. There are a bunch of videos, okay? There, so I'll share with you because now you started getting into the other thing. So this is the capture group one. Let me put that out. But go and create a brand new project, okay? Start from brand new project, and I'll put this video and send you guys link. Okay, I'm sending you guys. It wasn't public, so. Okay, I just sent you the video. So I'm going to leave this feature, okay, on the page.